anti-jobs.
Question number 3, Kevin Hague.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health and asks, was he told in 2010 that the Southern District Health Board had received legal advice that suggested there was the possibility of fraud in its dispute with Southlink Health?
Honourable Tony Ryle.
Mr Speaker, thank you for the question. Since yesterday's question in the House, we have gone back through the records in the office and double-checked with the Ministry of Health and the District Health Board's records and can find no reference to being advised at that time. This is a complex commercial dispute of between $5 or $6 million of savings generated through laboratory and pharmaceutical contracts during the 1990s, and whether or not there was agreement on how those savings would be reinvested back into health.
Supplementary question, Kevin Hague.
When the Minister said in the House yesterday that he was aware of the wider issue of the dispute for quite some time, but not the allegation of misuse of public funds, what precisely did he think the dispute involved?
Honourable Tony Ryle.
Mr Speaker, I've been aware for quite some time, in fact probably even in opposition, because the dispute had been going on since 2002, that there was a dispute about the terms in which those funds were or were being used. I had never been told that there was an allegation of fraud associated with that. That sounded more like a commercial dispute to me.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Kevin Hague.
What was discussed when the Minister met the Chair and Chief Executive of the Southern DHB in October 2010?
Come on.
Honourable Tony Ryle.
Mr Speaker, if the member was able to put that down on notice, I'd be able to give more advice with respect to that date. It was over 3
Supplementary question, Kevin Hague.
What discussions did the Minister have with Ministry of Health or National Health Board officials, including Michael Hundleby, Chai Chua and Stuart McLaughlin, about this issue since 2010? And what did they tell him about the likely need for legal action, criminal or civil, on the matter?
Honourable Tony Ryle.
Mr Speaker, members going back 3 years or so on this issue, I would have to know specifically the dates of those things. What I do know is that as Minister of Health, I have been aware of this issue for quite some time, and I am aware that at the end of 2010, the District Health Board referred the dispute with Southlink Health to the Ministry.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Kevin Hague.
Is he seriously asking the House to believe, noting the very high political and public awareness of fraud, especially in this particular DHB, that when the Ministry of Health received a letter in 2010 stating that there could be elements of fraud concerning more, potentially much more, than $5 million, that no one briefed him on this possibility?
Honourable Tony
Mr Speaker, the Ministry has advised me that they have no record of having received the 2010 letter to 2014, and what I can tell that member is I am certain that if the issue of fraud, that someone told me that there was evidence of fraud at a District Health Board, then I would have taken the appropriate action.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Kevin Hague.
Is it acceptable to him then that officials would withhold information from him about the possibility of a fraud, to which they were alerted in December 2010, for 3 whole years, apparently?
Honourable Tony
Mr
Ryle.
Speaker, the issue really hinges on the nature of the 2010 letter. And the 2010 letter actually says there are elements here that could be fraud, but equally those elements could be a commercial dispute, and further work is needed to draw any conclusion. Now, that letter was never referred to me, and nor does the Ministry have a copy of that until, I think, 2014.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Kevin Hague.
When the Southern DHB wrote to the Ministry of Health's Audit and Compliance Unit in December 2010, seeking an investigation and recommendation as to what it should do, why did it take 3 years for the ministry to respond?
Honourable Tony Ryan.
Mr Speaker, that's a very good question, and it's not a matter of took 3 years to respond. The reference was made, the audit and compliance people are based in Christchurch, and you'll be aware in the weeks that after the letter was referred, there was the second substantial Christchurch earthquake. Towards the end of 2010, work was undertaken by the audit and compliance people. There was an effort to try and mediate a settlement further in 2011, and there were a number of discussions with lawyers for the DHB and forensic accountants during that time. So action was being taken.
Supplementary question, Honourable Annette King.
Did he phone Murray Tilliard of Southlink Health at the end of last year to ask his advice on a possible chair for Southern DHB, knowing Mr Tilliard was in dispute with the board over $5 to $6 million, and having by then been told there could be elements of fraud?
Honourable Tony Ryan.
Mr Speaker, it would have been before. I would have spoken to Professor Tilliard well before the end of November, I believe. And yes, I did speak to him, and I did actually speak to a large number of people in southern DHB area.
Order. Question number 4. Lae Wha Amulia Asanati Lurley.